Are you ready to make some salsa? Let's get started. So today we're gonna make our salsa. We need 8 quarts of tomatoes. And as you can see, I have a couple varieties of tomatoes. I have the Roma tomatoes, but I also have some of these mountain fresh tomatoes. Really love these. They're a real meaty, beefy kind of tomato. I really like them. Try and pick the best tomatoes that you can, less blemish as possible. Because you're gonna be canning these, you want them to be a good tomato. You don't wanna have a lot of spots on them. No mold. Let's stay away from that if at all possible. So try and pick the best tomatoes that you can. And you need 32 cups or 8 quarts of peeled and cut tomatoes. And then you need some green peppers, and you're gonna use 8 green or red peppers you can use. Also, I was thinking, because I have a lot of banana peppers, I'm gonna throw some of those in this year. So I'm gonna make a total of 8 of those. 2 or 3 onions. These are quite large onions. So I'm just gonna do 2 of these large onions. Jalapenos, of course. You need some of those. And I would go with at least 8 for this size of a batch. But honestly, again, the last time I've had these jalapenos, they were very mild, so I would go closer to 12. Another thing you could do would be to put a habanero pepper in there, or I'm actually gonna try a poblano. I got it started already, I cut it. I'm gonna throw some of that in there, and we're gonna see how hot it actually gets. You definitely need garlic, and you're gonna look at about 3 cloves of garlic. And then you need a couple spices, and we can get into those once we actually throw them in the pot to get it all heated up. And then the last thing is we need our cilantro, parsley, some type of herb that you like. I know not everyone likes cilantro. I like it in moderation. So I'll probably put a little cilantro on, and I'll also put some parsley in, and that's gonna go at the very end. You're not gonna cook that. That goes at the end right when you throw it in. And then the last thing, something different I do with my salsa is I use lemon juice instead of vinegar. So I have a lemon here. I'm going to juice that up, probably 2 of them actually, maybe 3. And then you could also use lime. And then I also don't throw any sugar in mine because I go without sugar on all my stuff. I feel like that just adds carbs that you don't need. Totally up to you. But we'll get into that once we're actually throwing it on the pot. So the first thing we got to do is get everything cut up. We're going to do that, get it all chopped up, get everything measured out, and we'll come back and get this all cooking. Okay, so I got my hair up because it's a serious business here. Salsa making time, you know. I got everything chopped, got my tomatoes here, and again I have 8 quarts of tomatoes. I have my peppers, my jalapenos, my onions, garlic, and my poblano in here. That's all chopped up in here. And then I have my parsley and cilantro, which that's gonna go at the very end. Remember, we're not gonna heat that up. And then I have all my spices. So in here I have 2 tablespoons of canning salt. I have a teaspoon of paprika, probably a little bit more than that. And I have a teaspoon of garlic salt in here. And then the last thing we have is the lemon juice, and that's over by the stove. We're gonna put that in when we are cooking it. Again, you could use vinegar if you wanted to. I choose to use lemon juice. And you can also, if you decide you want to put some sugar in there, you could do that as well. I would do about a tablespoon of sugar if you decide to put that in. So now we're going to take everything over to the stove and get it all heated up. One other thing I didn't mention is I do have the canner started already. It's filled with water and it's going. I have my jars in there so that they heat it up. I did sterilize my lids and my rings already also, so those are ready to go. So now all I have to do is once this is heated up, we can just put it right into our jars, seal them up, and hot water bath them for 15 minutes, and they'll be done. So let's get over to the stove. Okay, so we have the tomatoes in our pot. I'm gonna turn it on right away. On high or medium high. I had to get a big stock pot so I can get all this stuff in here. We're gonna put our peppers, jalapenos, onions, garlic. Oh, I love the way this all smells. Got to get all that in there. And now we're going to put our seasoning all in here. And we got to get a big spoon out and mix this up. Mix this really good when it's on, right at the beginning, of course, and then pretty constant throughout, because you don't want it to stick to the bottom of the pot. You'd also put in some celery salt in here if you wanted to. I do add that a lot to my salsas. Gives it a nice flavor. And you're not going to count your 10 minutes until this is a boiling. We'll put the lid on it so that it gets nice and heated up, and we'll check back. So our salsa is just starting to boil, or just barely starting to boil. One thing I forgot to mention is that I forgot to add my lemon juice, so I'm going to throw my lemon juice in here real quick, and that's about 2 tablespoons. So I'll give that a quick stir and stir that in. As soon as this gets going, we're going to cook this for 10 minutes. If you feel your salsa is too juicy and you don't like it that way, you could cook it down for like an hour to 2 hours. If you have the time and you want to do that, perfect, go ahead and do that. But what I would do for myself, because I don't have that much extra time, is I would actually put a little cornstarch in water, maybe like 2 tablespoons of cornstarch with some water, pour that in there to thicken it up, wait a little while to see how thick it gets, and if it's not thick enough, then I would add probably a little bit more. But I don't have the time to cook it down for an hour to 2 to get it to the consistency I want it to. So that's just a tip that I learned. So again, we're going to wait until this is boiling, and we're going to start counting our 10 minutes. All right, so now we got a nice rapid boil going. We're going to make sure to keep stirring this. We have the timer set for 10 minutes. If you do want to thicken it up a little bit without having to wait the 1 to 2 hours, put a little cornstarch in some water, add it in there, wait about 5 minutes, see how thick it is. If you like it, then you're good. If you want to add a little more, go ahead and do that. Okay, so let's get our jars filled here. This is the messy part of the job. My jars are hot. The salsa's hot. So we're going to fill our jars. We're going to leave about a 1/4 inch of headspace. The salsa will thicken up a little bit also once it cools down. So again, if you don't need it like totally thick, it will thicken up a little bit. So there's our one. This is a funnel that I use. It works really well. It has a nice wide mouth on it. I can put a link in the description in case you decide you want to purchase one like that. So we're just going to finish filling these, and then we're going to get our lids on. When you put the lids on, you have to make sure that right around the top here is nice and dry. You want the lid to have a good seal to it. Okay, we're going to uncover a couple more jars. We're trying to keep them as hot as possible. And if you don't quite fill one of your jars, well, that's the one that goes in the refrigerator, and that you get to taste test later. I always make sure I have extra jars just in case. Okay, so let's wipe off the tops of these. And again, be very careful. We're going to get our lids and our rings on. Once we have our jars all filled, we cleaned off the lip, we put the rings and the lids on the top. Now we're going to put them in our hot water bath for 15 minutes. Again, be very careful when you're doing this. Okay, so we're going to put them in our canner. You want to make sure you have at least 1 inch of headspace on the top, which we do. We're gonna process these for 15 minutes. So our water bath is done. We got the jars all out. They're hot, of course. Most of them have already popped, so hopefully that means we have a good seal. I did actually, of course, have to have a little bit left out, so I'm gonna grab some of my chips here. I have to give it a little taste. You can't not, right? I think it was a success. It's not that hot, spicy-wise, I mean. Even with that poblano in there that I put in there, for me, it's not that hot anyways. I don't even really taste much of a zip or anything, so for me, it's really good. It has a lot of flavor. I really like it. The smaller jars I'll probably give away as gifts. The bigger jars I keep for home. One, because I like salsa, but two, I have a lot of recipes I use salsa in. So I'll use half the jar for the recipe for the chicken or whatever I'm making, and then the other half I get to eat with my chips. So I really hope you guys liked my video today for the salsa. Make sure you like and subscribe and share the video. Any comments are greatly appreciated. Have a great day.